Welcome to the 2019 Public Education Summit, the impact of taxation without representation. I am Dr. Lou Oprea from Trinity Washington University, and I would like to welcome my guests today, Sandra Sadiwa and Kyle Brewer. I'm glad to see you all today. And we are talking today about strengthening our education system, teenagers' perspective. We have two topics today. One of them, Sandra had mentioned to me before the show about public health and public safety. And this is also what Kyle is interested in too. What we're going to talk about are two different topics under public health and public safety. And one is, Sandra talked about recently, she knew of someone who was in a car accident and had loss of life. And also Sandra and Kyle want to talk about the recent mass shootings. So I'd like to start with Sandra. How did you feel when you heard about the person who lost her life?
Well, she was really young. She was only 26. So I feel like she had so much more to keep going for. But of course the accident was not all her fault. Not at all. And I just feel sad.
And I know that can be sad. So once you heard about it, what did you want to do?
Well, I wanted to do what I could for her mother, who is someone who's very dear to me because she's one of my old teachers. She was my creative writing teacher, and I wanted to help her out emotionally and financially as much as I could.
And how would you do that emotionally? How would you help her out?
Well, when I'm free this weekend, I'm planning to send her some flowers and hopefully meet up with her to talk to her. Just have a conversation, how she feels, and if there's anything she wants to get off her chest or something. And I know I went to meet with her, but it's more like I'm gonna listen to her.
Is this the first time that you had someone close to you who had lost someone?
Well, my grandfather died from lung problems, and we were really close. And he would send me letters talking about when he was younger and his goals in life, and how he was really proud of me.
So you had some good memories of him.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wanted to also include you too, Kyle. Have you had anyone in your life who's had a traumatic incident that had an impact on you?
A few months ago, one of my friend's older brother got killed by a stray bullet that was shot, and he was one of my really, really close friends, and I knew his older brother. And when I heard about that, it just really struck me really hard, because he's like a part of my family, I would say, even though we're not blood. We had a really close relationship. So he told me about it, and I just felt really bad for him because I couldn't even imagine my brother leaving this earth. So,
And I know that can be tough, whenever we hear of an incident like that or someone that we've, lost. What did you want to do after you heard about what happened to him?
um, first, I wanted to send my condolences to his family, talk to his mother, his father, his family, go to his funeral, and just mourn with them and help them with emotionally. And then I also kind of wanted the police to find whoever was shooting or what was happening, so I could feel comfort, and so I could feel safe again, knowing that he's not out in the streets messing up other people's families. So,
And that makes sense. I mean, I can understand that you wanted to feel comfort again and also for the family who lost their family member. And you mentioned about public safety, and you did too, Sandra. So, what do you feel that the community can do about public safety?
Um, well, I think uh, you should definitely be more safe and more mindful when driving. It's like a 2-ton hunk of metal that just goes anywhere you want it to. And it's both dangerous for the passengers and pedestrians if something goes wrong. And I think when you drive, you should have the mindset to get to your destination, but also come back home safely so that you can see your loved ones or your dog, your cat, or if you live alone, so you can see your favorite TV show again when you come back home.
And you're talking about not only public safety, but also finding a place where you feel comfortable and safe. Yes, and your thoughts about public safety, Kyle?
also adding on to what Sandra said, I feel like if people were much more mindful of how fast they were going, and not just wanting to get there faster, but worrying about the people that are walking. Because me, as a young man, not being able to drive, I have to walk a lot of places, and I see and I notice people speeding on streets that aren't highways. So, kind of feel unsafe. But I feel like if our communities were to be much more mindful and be observant of the people, like the pedestrians walking, we wouldn't have a lot of these problems that are happening now.
And I really appreciate you all talking about mindfulness. It's very important for us, to be aware, because mindfulness a lot of times means that, just being self-aware, seeing what's happening around us and seeing how we can keep ourselves safe. If sometimes we can't always find someone who can help us to be safe. So I wanted to also talk about the other topic that you all mentioned before the show, which was mass shootings. We've had a recent mass shooting. As a matter of fact, we had a few. How do you all feel about these mass shootings?
Honestly, I'm just so tired of hearing about them. It feels like when I wake up and turn on the TV in the living room, I just see another name of another school or some club or place, and that it's about a shooting and there's a dozen people dead, and I'm just so tired of waking up to see that.
And when you say tired, I mean, when you wake up and you see that, I mean, what emotions do you feel?
I feel sick to my stomach that like this is normal. Like it shouldn't be. Like I know the right to bear arms is in the 10 Amendments, but what it just confuses me. It's not freedom to just go around shooting people. That's terrorism. It's not freedom.
Okay. And I definitely hear how, you know, that emotionally it has had an impact on you, and you don't want this normalized. And how do you feel, Kyle?
Also adding on to what Sandra said, I believe what she's saying is when the amendments were written, it was in a time where we were at war. And some of those amendments still are still in effect, and they can still help us. It's just that that one amendment is not that as specific as it should be. And when it meant the right to bear arms, it's meaning to protect their families from people that are intruding, as in people from the other country, as an innovation, as in happening. And I believe that people abuse that right, and it's obvious that people just don't really care about what it honestly means. Because if people really did, all this stuff wouldn't really be happening. And I'm honestly sick and tired of waking up, looking at families on the news, crying mothers, having no more sons, their only daughter's gone, and it's just crazy.
And it's definitely had an impact on you too. And it sounds like you don't want this normalized either. So what I would like to do in a second half of our segment is to talk about some solutions, if that's possible. I think it is. And it sounds like you all want action taken, but not action that's going to be harmful to others. So we have about a minute left. Can you just tell me, you know, what is one thing right now that you see we can, you know, do as a community?
I feel like, well, this is kind of a key word, but we should be more mindful. This time not of our environment, but of our community and how other people are feeling. Make sure they're not feeling alone or want to cause harm to others.
Okay. And you, Kyle?
I feel like if we were all mindful, as the key word, if we were all mindful, a lot of these things that's happening now, like police brutality, mass shootings, hit and runs, honestly, I don't think that would be happening as much as it is. But it's the world that we live in, and it's sad that some people have created this normal.
Yes. And let's continue to talk about mindfulness as well as other things that might be helpful. We will take a short break and we'll be right back.
Open up your books to page 360.
Did you just look at your phone while you was in class? You played yourself.
Talking about inspirational quotes.
You gotta believe in yourself. Don't ever play yourself. The key is to make it, so make it.
Louise, can you give me an example of an inspirational quote?
Don't play yourself. The key is to make it.
And who said that?
I did. Now that's a major key alert.
Learn the real major keys to getting to college at getschool.com.
Welcome back to the 2019 Public Education Summit, the impact of taxation without representation. And I'm welcoming back my guests, Sandra Sadiwa and Kyle Brewer. This segment, we're going to continue talking about mindfulness as it relates to the mass shootings. Both Sandra and Kyle have talked about mindfulness and how important it is in us being self-aware about our own public safety, and as it also relates to our education system. Let's return back to some of the things that you were talking about, Sandra, about the confusion you've had with those that have been lost to, for example, the mass shootings, and how you don't want this to be normalized in our culture. What are some other things that you would like to see changed in our education system as well as our other systems?
Well, I feel like it isn't really the responsibility of schools to have like metal detectors or police like patting you down at the entrance. Like there's like hundreds or maybe even thousands of kids who go into one school, and it just seems tedious and very time wasting to go through a kind of procedure like that. But I feel like teachers and also students, like as classmates, can be considerate to each other's feelings if they feel frustrated or alone. You're gonna be with each other for like most of your school life, unless you move or something, and you should try to build relationships that will hopefully last longer than your school life. But you should try to be friends with everyone, and just be kind to each other.
And those are very important. And I would like to also know how you feel too, Kyle.
Actually, I disagree on what Sandra said when saying that the metal detectors are like, they slow down the process. I think that the metal detectors, and even if they had policemen patting us down, I feel like that's what stops the problem if there was to be a problem. Because if there was a child or anybody that we're trying to hurt or trying to do something bad, we could stop the problem there at the beginning of the day, and it'll be just over with, instead of having no protection and not being able to find out what's happening with that one person or what they're trying to do and what they're bringing into the school or at a place of business. Yeah.
Okay. So what I hear from both of you is that, these solutions, could be helpful, in the schools, and also, as you mentioned, Kyle, in our communities too. I also wonder, what are some things that you all are doing, to advocate? I mean, what would you like to do if you haven't done it already, to advocate to those in our communities, in our businesses, in our political systems? What would you like to advocate?
Well, I think as citizens, we have a duty to vote, and other than voting for stricter gun control, I feel like before, we just have to be considerate of each other, and just because you're having like a bad day or a week or a month, it doesn't mean you have to project it onto other people. You know, that's not fair. And um, I think we should, as you know, I'm kind of like afraid to say it, but as like the targets of most mass shootings, I feel like students have the heavy burden to speak up for themselves.
Yes, I could see that. That's a lot of responsibility on students.
But also, adding on to what Sandra said, students do have a big burden on what happens during like the social life of school, because there's social media, what happens on social media, and a lot of people don't like to talk about things outside or not on the phone about it because they feel like they'll be kind of as snitches. And honestly, it wouldn't count as snitching unless you're helping somebody or stopping something from happening, or to hurt that they're trying to hurt a friend, or even a mass killing or shooting up a school. Because if you don't not snitch or tell somebody in power to help you or help the school or the place of business, people are going to die. And I feel like that's what's really wrong with our communities, is that people don't really want to bring it to people that will actually do something. So.
And what I hear both of you saying is that it's important to take action through advocacy, through, actually giving voice to what's important to life. And the other thing I hear too is that taking preventive measures so there isn't a loss of life. I know in the first segment that you all talked about people that were close to you who you lost, and there were some things that really had an impact on you. The fact that their public safety was an issue. So if we go back to public safety, and especially to our education system, what are some things that we could change in our education system that would actually help our students, in particular teenagers, feel safe in their schools?
Well, adding on to what Kyle said, my best friend in South Carolina, she actually had a lab partner in chemistry. He was wearing a trench coat and hiding a pistol in it. And when my best friend came home and she messaged me about it, I was just furious because her lab partner, he was only found out because he was showing off the pistol to one of his friends, and his friend told like the authorities, people in power, like a teacher, and it was taken off of him. And I'm just scared to think what would have happened if he hadn't told the teachers, even though they were friends.
Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Kyle?
If our school systems were to be much more concerned or aware, I feel like there wouldn't be as much of mass shootings. It's not just that they're not aware, it's that some schools don't have metal detectors, and I feel like that's way how kids bring guns, knives, anything that they want into school. Because if you want to, you could just walk in the school, shoot the school up if they want to, if they don't have metal detector, and that's a huge concern. Not just as students, not just as parents, not faculty members, but as a community in general. And that's not just children losing their lives. That's people of communities, grandsons, granddaughters, future people of our nation, and that's really affecting us now. So that's really a big concern.
Yes, and I definitely hear how caring you all are of others. And I've heard that from other teenagers, how much they care for, their best friends, other students in class. They don't want to see others harmed. And I really appreciate you all talking about how our education, could change so that you all feel safe. So if we're looking at solutions, for the individual students, what do you think would be some preventive measures that students can do for themselves? I know one of the things is like giving voice, saying when something has happened, so that other people are not harmed. But what do you think we could do as far as mindfulness or anything else that might be helpful?
Alright, so typically when kids get a hold of guns, it's usually because they're of their parents. I think if you are a parent who owns a gun, you should keep it locked up somewhere where your kids can't access it, and hide the keys somewhere. And if you're saying like you have the right to bear arms and to protect your family, I mean, you don't really need an AR to protect your house, and it's not protection if your kid goes and steals it and kills other kids.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. And we have a few seconds left. Kyle, do you have your thoughts too?
I think that if children just had counseling, a lot of these things wouldn't really be happening, because usually when it's a mass shooting, they always say, oh, he had something wrong with him. I noticed it. He was crazy. Oh, he has a problem in his head. Something's wrong with him. I feel like if you had counseling, they wouldn't be able to say those type of things, and these mass shootings wouldn't really be happening. So
I appreciate you saying that, Kyle, because as a licensed professional counselor, that's one of the things we look at are, strength-based models and wellness models for individuals, and I agree with both of you. And I want to thank my guests tonight for coming and sharing what's really important to you all and also to other teenagers, I believe. Thank you for coming, Sandra Sadiwa and Kyle Brewer. And thank all of you all for being here at the 2019 Public Education Summit, The Impact of Taxation Without Representation. And we wish all of you a Happy New Year.